Well, hello there. Welcome to WTA Weekly. We'll give you guys some time to join. I know it's a later one than usual. I'm assuming our European viewers will probably be catching up with us on the podcast or on video catch up. But hopefully, those of you who are tuning in from other parts of the world, sort of America, Australia, wherever you are in the world, hope you're enjoying joining in with us today on the show. We've got a few good things lined up for this week. And we've had plenty of tennis. What's the last regular week of WTA tennis? Let's be honest, because we're now into the final stretch of the WTA season over the next 3 weeks. So let's talk a little bit about what's happening in what's happened over this week, as it were. The sort of the 3 250s that took place. 3 tournaments, 3 different continents: Asia, Africa, Europe. 3 different countries: China, Tunisia, and in Romania. And we're going to be spending a lot of time on the tournament in Tunisia, in Monastir, because if you've been paying attention to the content of the channel, you'll know that John was on the ground there, and his plane has more or less just touched down, and he has returned to us from his great adventure in Monastir. Hello, Miles. Lovely to see you as always. Thank you for tuning in, as it were, and great that you're here to support and talk WTA tennis, and appreciate the compliments. Thank you. I did not do this myself. I paid someone to do it, which I think is probably better all around, to be honest. Right. I think before we kind of dive into the episode, I think we've got some breaking news we need to cover. Or we will do at some point. I don't know. I don't even know what the news is, to be honest. I've got someone in my ear. That's the problem. Okay, we're going live. We're cutting across now. Okay. Apparently, we don't have breaking news, just some kind of footage from some kind of very sort of generic music concert. But anyway, right. Well, we'll just talk headlines from the week. So obviously, we've had 3 tournaments, 3 different winners. We've had great success for Katerina Siniakova, who won her 2nd tournament of the year, 3rd of her career, in Nanchang, in what was actually a really, really good run. I'm planning on spending a little bit of time talking about that, because I think winning 2 titles a year is pretty difficult at the moment on the WTA tour, and she might have just slipped under the radar a little bit, Siniakova. Hello, Claire. Lovely to see you in chat. Thank you for becoming a member. Great to have you as part of the talking tennis community. First time I think we probably interacted. We got Jake as well. Hello, Jake. Great news about the job. Well done on getting that. So yeah, great to have you all on board. If you're probably wondering what on earth is going on, because I appreciate some of you may not have watched WTA Weekly before. Is it just some dude rambling at a camera for a long period of time? Thankfully, no. I am supposed to have John online. I think he's made it back from Tunisia, but we're not sure. Let's see.
Shisha.
Aha! Ahoy there, John! Returned from the high seas and with appropriate haircut to boot. How are you, sir?
I'm all right. Yes, I survived the journey. Hi, Jake, as well. I can see you in the chat, and of course, Miles, and hi, Claire, as well, who's a very familiar face to me. Yeah, no, good. And sorry about the delays. The most arduous part of the journey, anyone who has lived in Germany, but particularly Western Germany, will know it's the train journey back from Düsseldorf Airport, where there are delays and further delays. Miles, I'm glad you enjoyed that. As I was watching that video for like the 10th time, I was thinking, I think Miles will appreciate this.
Well, he should. There was a lot of effort, and only on Talking Tennis do we really understand the epicness that is the sport and rise to it appropriately. Let's talk Tunisia. So,
yeah,
the Monastir Open. So obviously you were on the ground. I guess the main headline from the event is Elise Mertens defending her title, finally winning a WTA title this year. But I suppose the big story is that she sort of just sort of cruised the title, didn't she? Just sort of plowed her way through the draw, didn't really meet much resistance. Not surprising given the kind of class player that she is. Maybe she would have had a bit more of a challenge if Ons Jabeur had played, but obviously she wanted to play in Cancun in a couple of weeks, and that's why she pulled out. But yeah, as the man on the ground, give us your thoughts on Elise Mertens' run.
Yeah, let's. There's sort of 3 or 4 players that I think all have a story linked to them, and we'll start with Mertens and work our way back. As you said, didn't drop a set. I said that to her in the press conference after her win that 10 was the magic number because she has won 10 matches in a row there over 2 years now. And she also won 10 games in a row to actually seal the title, which, actually did come a bit of a surprise to me. I thought it was going to be a very competitive final. I thought it would be very close. I probably did have Mertens as the slight favorite with the experience and having won it last year. And I think that Paolini's had a great career, but, she's lost a couple of finals, for example, Cluj exactly a year ago at this exact point. So I thought Mertens might just edge it, but I did expect, and to be honest with you, the first 7 games suggested it was going to be a really good final. 4-3, I think. Paolini was leading at that point. Mertens then holds serve. She then Mertens is leading 4-3. I think anyway. Whatever. The point. Oh no, she was actually 3-2 down. Anyway, you'd think I would know all this given that I was there. But
okay,
yeah,
the score
Mertens,
in the final, John, was 6-3, 6-love.
Yeah, 6-3, 6-love, and I think she was 3-2 down. That's right, she was 3-2 down.
Yeah, because they'll make it 10 in a row.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, the biggest scare that she had, funnily enough, really, despite bagling in one of these sets, was in the first round against Iala, who was 7-6, and I think she had some set points as well. It was actually before my arrival, but that was the biggest scare she got, certainly in terms of close to losing a set all the way through to sealing the title. There was a narrative regarding Paolini in the final that I think suited a lot of people. I saw lots of people nodding in the press conference when I put it to Paolini that perhaps, the fatigue may have played an issue and playing doubles. And of course, she went all the way in the doubles, but she was pushed a lot more en route to the final than Mertens. However, she said no, she felt fine. It was more that Mertens was just playing really well and perhaps the occasion for the first couple of games, because actually she did lose the first 2 games and then she got it back on serve, got her. And I probably do subscribe to that idea that it's 5 matches. doubles, you're going to be practicing or you play doubles. And she was really pleased to extol the virtues of playing doubles that helps her in singles. And I just think it's an easy narrative to just look at the black and white and go, oh, okay, yeah, she's probably just tired. She said she felt fine, and I tend to believe her. I just think that maybe she was lacking the confidence in the crucial moments. There was a game at the beginning of the second set, which was so important because she just lost the first set 6-3, and she was love 40 down. She got it back to deuce. This is Paolini, but there were points and balls that she should have won, and she was up in rallies, but she was just a bit too cautious, and Mertens punished her.
There you go. Yeah, I think we did expect Paolini to maybe put up a bit more of a fight. You're right, given her track record of producing some epic tennis. Love to see more people in the chat, by the way. Nice to see you, Valvez. I think so. The first set seemed to suggest that we were going to get a contest, and but as you say, I completely agree with I agree with you. I don't think doubles is necessarily a detriment. It often helps players more than anything else. If we see players like Krejcikova has benefited from doing that, Pegula and Goff in recent years, having that as a fallback, keeping them fresh, like Pegula particularly seems to like it. Brilliant. But it was just a brilliant week from Mertens. It's interesting you picked up on the first round against Diala, because I remember us talking. I don't think we were on stream at that point, but it was behind the scenes, sort of ahead of last week's episode, where we were saying, Ayala was a story in the making, and there was a potential upset brewing there, given Ayala's sort of very impressive junior career. So it sort of almost played out how I was expecting. So really, sort of after a tough first round where Mertens was still kind of playing well, it's probably not a surprise that gave her the momentum to carry her through the rest of that tournament. It's a shame you didn't really catch that one on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I think yes, indeed, that is who Ayala is, Miles. She is from the academy, and I think there was an Amazon series that followed a lot of the players through the academy about 2 or 3 years ago. I also think that with that Ayala encounter, that it's unfortunate for Ayala, that it actually came in the first round, because I actually think that if she got a slightly nicer draw, she'd come through qualifying as well. If she gets a slightly better draw, let's say she's on the other half of the draw, or even she just meets her a bit later, then the tournament has a bit more of like, oh, who's, for people that aren't aware of her, who's this young girl who's tearing it up? I think she could have won a couple of other matches if she hadn't run into Mertens so early on. And then that would have breathed extra life into the tournament. And it may even have been that if it wasn't for that first round clash, and I'm thinking about it from the Jasmine Open perspective, it could have been the tournament where she announced herself if that draw hadn't been so unkind to her. But yes, it's unfortunate as well that I didn't get there until the quarterfinals. I was actually there for one of the last 16 matches on Thursday, but basically quarterfinals onwards, I was all over that. But yeah, of course, there were other stories, and Paolini being one of them. She was exciting to watch. I mean, the semi-final against Surenko was possibly one of the best matches of certainly the time I was there anyway. In that it was 3 sets. You weren't quite sure where it was going to go. Surenko was a little bit underpowered. I think she was feeling a little unwell. The physio came out quite early on in the first set to tend to her, but she did really well to get it back. Probably there was always a feeling that it was on Paolini's racket, but that, as I said, it could well be just because she was slightly under the weather, Surenko. But that was a great encounter. We're surprised Surenko didn't retire. Oh, I see. Given her reputation, I think that's been a thing before, right, Nick?
Yeah, we have made a reference to it. I'm trying not to do it again.
I mean, actually, Nick, I tell you what, I'll add something to that, if you like, and it's a thing that we've spoken about in a WhatsApp group before. I saw her about 2 hours later, and she looked, I mean, okay, she's not on a tennis court, she's in the canteen and she's having a really nice meal, and she looked fine. And she was struggling. She had the physio come out after 4 games, and yet she wins the second set and she battles through that. Yeah. Actually, honestly, the thing that surprised me most is just seeing her just eating away, having a good time in the canteen at about 6, 7 o'clock. I would have thought that if you're feeling a bit under the weather, especially like in terms of the stomach or something like this, probably the last thing you want to be doing is filling your face in the canteen. But there we go. That's that. But it was a good match, and Paolini probably was the most exciting story, if you like. I mean, you've got the Mertens machine, and that mustn't be underplayed. But bearing in mind, Paolini obviously had the doubles, and in the semi-final, I think it was, of the doubles, her and Irani were 8-5 down in the deciding set tiebreak. They get it back to 8-all, then they go 9-8 down. Anyway, they end up prevailing. I think it was 11-9, so that was drama. Then in the final, it went to there was a tiebreak at the end of the second set, which I think they lost, and then won the deciding set tiebreak as well. I think that was a bit more comfortable, about 10-5 or 10-6. But she was arguably the entertainment, certainly in Tunisia in the last sort of 7 days or so.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously, two finals. I mean, like, yeah, she was definitely the name I was seeing the most buzz about in relation to the tournament. I agree with you there.
I saw her at 4:00 this morning as well, and before tongues start to wag, yeah, I know. I saw Paolini in the reception at 4:00 this morning as she was going to get her flight. And as soon as she sort of said good morning or something, and I said, "Oh, hi, Jasmine," and she sort of smiled because I just obviously called her by her first name. Yeah. And she looked a bit perturbed, but that was because I think the taxi was late, and they had a flight to catch. I'm not sure where to, but
well, her season's over now. I don't think she's in the Elite Trophy. I think unless she's going.
What about Billie Jean Cup? Yeah, Italy are there, so.
Oh, so that's probably where they're going next, and that's where you're going next, isn't it?
Yeah. 2 weeks from now, yeah, I'll be there. And Antonio as well is going to be joining the Talking Tennis team for a week. This is a guy I know in Seville. He's got a press pass too, so we'll be doubling up there as well. To be honest with you, I'm really looking forward to it. I lived in Seville for 3 years, so it's like a second home for me. So to go there and see it in November when the sun is still shining and the nights are getting darker and the days are getting colder in Northern Europe, I'm really excited about that. And I'm excited as well for the tennis. And Spain are participating in the Billie Jean King Cup, unlike the Davis Cup. So at least there'll be some home support for one of the competing nations.
Yeah, I think it's got the potential to be a really, really good week of tennis, which is I think it's worth talking about. But we'll talk a bit more about the Billie Jean King Cup a bit closer to the time. But that's obviously where we're going. Where Talking Tennis will be next presence, because sadly no one's jumping on a plane to Asia or Mexico.
No, we to be honest with you, Vanch was tempted by Cancun. In fact, I think it's a problem to say that he did reach out, but it was kind of like, yeah, could be a good. Basically, it's not going to happen. But we're trying to get as many parts of the globe covered as we possibly can, and Tunisia is not too bad. Almost in terms of distance, it's like just another. It's on the north coast. It's only a couple of hours by boat from Italy and Malta, so it's kind of not too far away. Another thing as well is, of course, we've got Cancun on the horizon. That's where Mertens is off to, actually, because she's competing in the doubles there.
Yes,
and. I mentioned it to the Tunisian president. I think it was not the Tunisian president, the tennis president. I didn't go quite.
That's the biggest scoop this channel's ever had.
That and other people around as well. I said, you know what, this is what you can do to sort of market this event, if you like, is to sort of if it's in Cancun in years to come. I mean, you might have some players that are thinking, oh, I don't want to be going, playing 2 weeks before, but actually, if you're going to be on the coast, and let's just say you had to miss the US Open, or you're going to be in Cancun, but your season has been interrupted, particularly sort of post Wimbledon, and you might want to get some more matches under your belt. I actually think the north coast of Tunisia, where there's palm trees, a bit of a breeze at times, outdoors, and probably their most significant factor, I don't think it's the worst preparation in the world for Cancun.
I would agree with that. So especially since they changed it from clay to hard.
Right. And of course you've got Cluj, which is indoors, or you've got an Asian tournament as well, which obviously we'll come to later on. Of the three, the better. I'm not suggesting that someone like Iga is going to probably stop by, but if you had an interrupted sort of summer or fall in terms of you wanted to get some matches under your belt, or you just felt super fresh, I think a 5 matches in Jasmine or I should say Monastir, the Jasmine Open, probably would be nice preparation for Cancun. If of course they have it in Cancun next year, which we probably won't find out until about 2 weeks before anyway.
It probably will. I mean, like the it's rumbling towards Saudi Arabia, which actually would mean that actually Monastir would actually be the perfect warm up for that, because it's
it would be much closer,
pretty close. So yeah, that would probably benefit them a lot. So obviously, yeah, you've got the interview up with the president of the Tunisian Tennis Federation, not the country. Is that so? Definitely go and check that out. Is there any other interesting interviews from Tunisia that we should anyone who hasn't caught it yet should catch up on?
Yeah, they're not necessarily. There's actually one that's not WTA related. It's ATP, but I don't mind mentioning it because actually, in a way, it's applicable to both sides of the tour, because it's the Tunisian ATP, so the men's number 1. He's 246 in the world. I'm just going to share.
We're just about in the bracket for Slam qualification.
Exactly, and that of course
but we're doing qualifiers.
Exactly, Slam qualifiers, and that came up in our chat. But it is actually very relevant because most of what we were talking about is like life on tour, the financial pressures. So this is it here. It's with Aziz. I hope I'm going to say his name right. Aziz Dugaz. Of course, I reached out to Damien to see what he had to say about him, and Damien knew plenty, of course, from the Challenger Tour. And of course, plenty of press conferences. And like I say, the Tunisian Tennis Federation president, Ons Jabeur, I think we probably have to mention her before we leave Monastir, in that even the Tunisian Tennis Federation president, who's going to try and give us positive spin on the tournament she can, had to say what a disappointment. And it's pity, of course, that Ons unfortunately got injured in Asia and wasn't able to make it there. So that was obviously the first thing. I still had a great time having the location of the tournament, and basically where the players and people like me were staying, all basically on the same venue. So you're just literally, you're 5 minutes away from the center court when you're having lunch, breakfast, or dinner or whatever. I enjoyed it. The players seem to enjoy that convenience as well. So that like limit, even the airport, by the way, is a 10-minute walk. Like I say, I did that video and I'm thinking it couldn't be further from the truth how convenient the whole trip is, except for German trains. It was super nice. So yeah, I think it's kind of unique in that respect. I'm not aware, and I spoke to, I think, at least Mertens about this, that there's not really another tournament on tour where you literally just could jump out of bed, have a bit of breakfast, and jump on the practice court or even center court if you wanted. And in fact, jumping on center court is exactly what I did for after this, when the ceremony took place. So I had the cliche pose with the Monastir letters on the court and all the rest of it. So yeah, as you can tell, I had a great time, and I'm definitely going to go back next year.
Yeah, well, that'd be great, and hopefully we get some Ons Jabeur content from it as well, for our sakes and the tournament. Yeah, great job. Yeah, great job as always in bringing us great content from Monastir. But yeah, I'm excited for it, and I hope we see them back on the calendar next year, because obviously the calendar.
I have got one other thing to say. It's a 3-year arrangement that you have, and it is kind of the Ons tournament, if you like, in that it wouldn't be on the calendar without Jabeur, that's for sure. And it will almost certainly be back in Monastir next year. I say the arrangement, I think, is with Tunisian Tennis rather than Monastir itself, but it's almost certainly going to be back at the same venue, so they will be on the calendar next year. The Tunisian tennis president, she wanted a slightly earlier slot in the calendar, sometime in earlier October. She's also got an eye on having an ATP tournament there, which is great, especially given how little tennis there is at 250 or higher in Africa. So yeah, lots of good fun, and hopefully it goes beyond the 3-year arrangement. So it's obviously one more year, because it was there last year as well, and one more year, and hopefully it goes much beyond that. I guess it will depend a lot on Ons and other things, and maybe even the success of other North African players.
Yeah, and actually Miles makes a great point in the chat, saying that he hopes that Ons can win a Slam to solidify the tournament on the calendar, because that's just going to be the place to be. Like, that's going to really put African tennis on the map. Okay, well, I think the next tournament we should probably talk about, because it's going to be the shortest conversation, is Cluj.
Well, you're going to have to. I can be the host now. I nearly call you John. Then I'm John, because I'm going to lean on
Hi,
you.
Nick.
But go on. I'll let you
Yeah.
continue.
Well, I was going to say, I don't think you watched any other tennis other than at Monastir, and I did not watch anything from Cluj. So
Okay, well, we'll fix it. We'll make it work. I'm sure.
we'll make it work. So this is what I'm saying. Let's do Cluj now and get that out of the way.
Get it out of the way.
Because then.
Oh, what's this? This is just a best pass for Monastir. Sorry,
I can add that to the collection you see behind you. Live on Talking Tennis, a new press pass has been added. He grows stronger with every pass or infinity pass that's added to the gauntlet. Yeah, so we'll do Nanchang afterwards, sort of towards the end, because that will feed nicely into the Elite Trophy as well. But also, there's probably a bit more story there. But yeah, headline from Cluj: Tamara Korpach won the title there. Unseeded, headed through the tournament. I think the highest player she played was Jodie Burridge, who was ranked 89 at that point. So yeah, didn't play anyone higher than 88. So it was a bit of a crazy tournament, because most of the seeds got knocked out, and the only two seeds that made the semi-finals, well, the only seeds that made the quarterfinals played each other. So yeah, it was a great opportunity for a lot of people. And Korpach has had a low-key year, but very successful on sort of the lower tier. And great result for her. So yeah, that's all I can really say on Cluj. I think the Romanian players were probably getting the most attention.
Yeah, did she go out in like the quarters or something?
She went out first round.
Yeah. And of course, it's also a tournament where we've had Raducanu in the past, and she's got some Romanian background, I think. So, yeah, I mean, listen, there is a generic point actually that I can make both about Cluj and Monastir and other tournaments that I've attended. And the grass is always greener in that they all, like, I was talking to the guys in Estoril in April, and they're like, yeah, but we don't like this slot in the calendar because the final of Miami's on the Sunday, and the first round proper is on the Monday. Even if you can maybe play your first round on the Tuesday, you're not going to play the final. For example, someone who goes deep in Miami is basically not going to go to Estoril. And I'm like, yeah, but it's still great. You're heralding the beginning of the journey towards Paris. I know we have that little clay court swing in February, but you're the one. And if you're a player who's really got eyes on doing well in Paris, a Casper Ruud, as we've seen, or a Dominic Thiem, for example, if you go out early in Miami, you can't wait to get on that clay, and you can't wait to get going. And I thought to myself, yeah, of course you'd love to be a little bit later in the calendar, but you could be the week before the French Open, and that's no good either, because most people will finish in Rome and then have a week off. So, and you can't compete with Rome, Monte Carlo, or Madrid, and then you've got Barcelona. So you've got to go somewhere on the calendar. And I think actually being the first week is not too bad. And then looking at seeing what happened in Cluj this year with players going out early and one or two withdrawals as well, that the thing with the, if she didn't ask my opinion, but I was thinking as the Tunisian Tennis Federation was suggesting they would like an earlier slot in October. I'm like, yeah, but then you'll be competing with the Asian swing, and there'll be maybe a 1,000 you're competing with at the same time, or you're going to be really struggling. So sometimes, of course, you always want to take a step forward, but sometimes, I think a lot of fiddling is done, and they're doing it with the right intentions because they want it, to attract even more players. But sometimes, if it isn't broken, why fix it? And of course, in Monastir, they had the 1 and 2 seed getting to the final, both of which were ranked around about 30, 32 in the world. So that's pretty good. Both Paolini and Mertens wouldn't be out of place in a quarterfinal at a Grand Slam, and there they are in the final. And Surenko, she had a good run in Paris this year, I think. So before, I think she was ill against Iga. And so, yeah, it's unfortunate, I guess, for the title. It's obviously great for Korpatsch, and you can only beat what's in front of you. And maybe Jodie Burridge may even be thinking to herself, there was a chance here.
Well, there was a chance because she lost in a final set tiebreak. So she was the one who ended up pushing Korpatsch the most, because I think Snigo took Korpatsch to 3 as well. Actually, Korpatsch's first 3 matches went 3, but Burridge pushed her the furthest. I'm having a look. I think probably the biggest stories from the draw, from a sort of a home perspective, were from a sort of tournament perspective, would be the sort of in the second round. They still, despite the fact that Castella went out in round 1, there were still 5 Romanian players in the last 16. Went down to about 2 with Bogdan and Rus in the quarters. And actually, Elena Gabriela Rus, as a wild card, made the final, losing to Korpatsch. And she did pretty well. So I think, although maybe from a international standpoint of watching it, it probably wasn't the most eye-catching. If you're a Romanian tennis fan, that was a great.
I'm sure they were selling tickets, so that's good.
Yeah, so like they were selling tickets and they could see top players. Yes, Simona Halep wasn't there for obvious reasons. That probably would have been an even bigger draw, but they've still got Castella. Bogdan's had a good year. Rus, steps it up at home. If you're a Romanian tennis fan, great week.
Yep, definitely.
So I guess let's talk probably the most dramatic tournament of the week, which was
what?
Well,
I thought no. I'm not having that, Nick.
Not having that?
Drama. You didn't see the first 5 games of the final. That was great in Monastir. We forget about the next 10 games.
Yes, but then the Nanchang final had.
Yeah, I know. I'm teasing.
An absolute. But for those who may not know, was an absolute barnstorm. It didn't look like it was going to be, because Marie Bushkova won the first set 6-1 and was a breakup in the second and was serving for the match. And Katerina Siniakova came storming back. She broke back. She saved match points. It was real tussle in the second set.
When did the match points come, Nick?
Sorry, what?
When did the match points come?
Oh, I think second set, possibly. I cannot remember off the top of my head.
But yeah, I mean, saving match points, and it went to a deciding set tie break between, is it fair to say, kind of 2 evenly matched players, even coming into the event?
They were very evenly matched. That was the one event, like the one match I paid the most close attention to. And it was a real back and forth. Like, Bushkova and Siniakova aren't necessarily big ball strikers, or at least the biggest ball strikers, I should say. But Siniakova was going for her shots, and Bushkova was using a lot of court craft to try and dismantle it. They're both quite crafty players in their own right, actually. So, yeah, they were very evenly matched. Some of the rallies, you had no idea who was going to win it. You could tell they were very well-trained Czech players. And yeah, it was a great watch. And Siniakova, she had a bit of a tough run. I mean, like, she avoided having to play a friend of the show, Laura Siegmund, due to a retirement by the German. But then she had to play Leylah Fernandez in a rematch of the Hong Kong final in the semis. And that one, I was like, I think she might get that, because that Hong Kong final was super close as well. Which she did. She overcame that in straight sets, and then played another barnstorming final, consecutive weeks. And in this case, she came out on top. Bushkova as well. She came through some tough competition. She had to play Osorio in the quarters. It was 6-love, 6-4, but Osorio on her day can be tough. And then Diana Schneider was having a great week, and we know how tough she can be. And that was another tie break involved in that one. So. They were both primed and ready to go, and the final really delivered. Some great tennis, as you would expect from 2 sort of top 50 players. I think Siniakova's really making her way up the rankings. As I said, 2nd title of the year. Not many people have won more than 1 title on the tour. So yeah, I think, and it's the third of her career as well. So she's starting to maybe follow in the footsteps of her doubles partner, Krejcikova, in showing why, they're two very good singles players, why combined they make the best doubles team in the world.
I mean, so we had Layla getting to the semis
Yeah.
on the back of her 250 the week before in Hong Kong, her 250 success. As you highlighted, she beat Siniakova there, and then Siniakova won the return match here in the semis. Where are we at? We're in a good moment for Layla, I guess. I mean, I've written two names down. Funny enough, I've got Layla and also got Maria Sakkari written down in the same kind of bracket. I know that Sakkari, of course, wasn't involved in the latter two tournaments, but they've both had successes recently in terms of titles, albeit one was 1,000, one was a 250, but there was a lot talked about with Maria's run to that 1,000 title in terms of the level of opposition. And they both probably in a way have a similar significance, despite the fact one's a 251. They've just basically won a title, and that's huge for both players, I think. But there is a slight asterisk with both of them in that I don't know if it changes a huge amount going into, say, Australia. I don't think, bless you. I don't think, suddenly because of those two results, I'll be probably predicting them to get to the quarters or the semis in Melbourne. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I must admit I lost some of that because I was sneezing. But also, well-corrected, Paul. Paris Siniakova has 5 titles, so I think it's 3 in a couple of years, and then a couple back in 2017 that she won. So I've clearly gone off some wrong information now. I think I was only looking back the last couple of years. Leylah Fernandez. I put a tweet out saying that I wasn't expecting a win streak from her, but I'm here for it. Leylah is I'm optimistic about Leylah. I think it's the end of the year, yes, but she's had putting together a decent run is going to give her some confidence going into 2024. We know what she's capable of. I think she's one of those players who needs momentum, and some of the draws that she's had really kind of stalled her to a certain extent. Like keeps running into Garcia in early rounds or someone like that. That Hong Kong run was like some of the best turns I've seen from her in a while. I think she was unfortunate to play Siniakova, who could kind of match her for kind of craftiness. But she's now 35 in the world. She's 3 away from an Australian Open seeding. If things go well for her early 2024, then she could steal something in the first week of the year, maybe. But that's kind of a big.
You say she's 35 in the world right now, yeah?
Yes, she's just jumped to 35 off the back of the last couple of weeks.
I mean, if she just maintains something, maybe even creeps up 1 or 2 spots, because
she even if she doesn't make it Australia, I think she's got herself a good chance of creeping up, because she's got big points from the end of the year now with a 250 followed by a 250 semi-final. I think a couple of others scattered throughout the year. But yeah, I'm always going to be big on Leylah Fernandez. I'm always going to be positive about her chance.
Listen, I love Leylah, and the fact that she's been in a final and had that unbelievable run in New York, and the way it came about and the way she came through that, and the fact that she couldn't quite get over the line. I have huge amounts of interest and sympathy on players that get to Grand Slam finals, because you just don't know if or when it'll happen again. Ons is probably the classic case, but on the men's side, of course, you've got Casper as well, both those two players.
You've got, that French Open quarterfinal she had in 2022, where she was just so unfortunate to be injured, because that could have been a very interesting, if she'd beaten Trevisan and was healthy, a match against Goff in that semi-final could have been very, very competitive. And myself, I don't think she would have beaten Iga, because no one was beating Iga that year. But
the thing is, the more I watch,
and like Roland Garros, ideal location for her, because it suits her so well. Play.
Yeah, I agree. But the more I watch of Leylah, the more I realize that actually the run that she had to the US Open final was actually not as freakish. In other words, we watched it and we saw how it battling through 3 setters and deciding set tie breaks and prevailing over Osaka and pulling off a few surprises, because at that point she wasn't quite as well known as she is today. But I think that's unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which way you look at it, is going to be the way she's going to have to do it. Because whenever I see her, she goes up a break or something, but you know how vulnerable she is on serve, but then she can also be down a break or even a double break. It was in New York this year, and I think she almost got it back in the deciding set. She's someone that unfortunately, if she's not going to ever do it the easy way, and that's partly because of the way she plays, partly because of that serve that I think if somebody can get to her and help her with that serve, that would be unbelievable. Miles wants to tell us. Go on, Nick. But Miles does want to say something as well. But
she is definitely comparatively underpowered. And so the way she plays is kind of around that. So I'm not surprised the serve is attackable, but it's that fight, that grit that's got her where she is. And you're right, she's going to have to do it again. So that way, but I think she's perfectly capable of doing it, and she seems to thrive off doing it.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Your cue, Miles. This is your. I thought to myself, you know what? We're so smooth at talking tennis that I won't even need to say, "Hey, Miles, what do you reckon?" So I just left it silent, and then we both spoke at the same time.
I think that is what actually makes talking tennis what it is, like the idiosyncrasies and the rough ends that make us relatable.
So tell us,
Layla, I'm actually the most bullish, I guess, in a lack of a better term that comes to mind about her that I have been since that French Open last year. I watched a couple of her matches in Hong Kong, and I was nervous from the very get-go because she drew Azarenka in the first round of that tournament, and she got a little lucky that Azarenka retired from an injury at the beginning of the third set / end of the second. But I feel like Layla is a person that thrives off of the feeling of winning, and she hadn't had that many really positive feelings over the past year because of the injury. And now that she's gotten it, I think the championship in Hong Kong and the semi in Jiangxi, it was a semi, correct?
Yeah.
With her being already inside the top 40, knowing what it feels like to get to a Grand Slam final, having 3 WTA titles underneath her belt, I don't see why she can't have a springboard in 2024 or just have a consistent career like that. In terms of, like, you never really want to count her out, because even though she isn't necessarily a person with a lot of big weapons, she has to have some of the biggest heart and tenacity on the tour, as well as the best legs. She can pretty much get her racket on everything, even with that small frame. And maybe I shouldn't say always, but I think of her and how I think of Dominika Cibulkova, who made a career off of being just as feisty as that and kind of being able to overpower the people she was supposed to, and then use other tactics against people that could overpower her, and just make herself a relevant top 30 player for most of her career, despite being so small. And if I'm being very confident and like very big on Layla, why can't she have a good Australian Open? Why can't she have a good first 6 months of the season to kind of be like, hey, you guys forgot about me a little bit, but here I am now. So I feel good about that.
I'm all here for it, Miles. I just don't know if the 2 titles that I mentioned, one for Marie and one for Layla, has changed my thoughts that much. But maybe Nick is sharing your optimism. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sharing his optimism. I'm sharing.
Yes.
I am all aboard the Layla hype train, my friend. And this is what Miles has expressed very much my thoughts as well. Look, I'm not going to be confidently predicting Layla Fernandez to win majors. I'd probably be more confident in predicting her to win a major than Maria Sakkari, but I would be. But like that's not very much. But that's because she's kind of been so close before. What I think that I'm here for Fernandez, at least having maybe realistically we're talking like a kind of a boost for the first couple of weeks of the year, a bit like Alicia Parks had with the way she ended 2022, got to 2023, won a title early on. No, hey, look, I think they might be going back to Monterey. I'm sure Layla can sneak a title there again. But I'm all aboard the Fernandez hype train. I'm not going to predict like she's winning the Australian Open or anything. I would be fully willing to put her in the second week of Australia, depending on how the draw goes. She's probably not going to be seeded. It's going to be, probably have to win or go deep very early on, maybe play someone like Auckland, get some cheeky points on the board. But if she was to just miss out, then, and she played someone like, I don't know, no, I'm not going to go for like stupid dog saying right at the top, like someone like let's say Sakari in round 1, or a Krejcikova in round 1. You know, she's been upset alert. She could definitely pull off that upset, but also that would be, given how well those two could play, also particularly unfortunate. Or even a Madison Keys in round 1, something like that. You know, that would be
or even if she gets through the tight moments of going against somebody that's a higher seed, we've seen what that does to her for the remainder of the tournament. That gives her a boost. And I do agree with what you said about, if I had to choose between Maria Sakkari and Leylah Fernandez, who would win a major, some might find it debatable that I would say Leylah over Sakkari, because Sakkari's technically the more accomplished player, but Leylah has a one-up on her in some different categories, in the way that she doesn't have nearly the amount of quote-unquote baggage in very tight moments and moments later on deeper in the tournament. She knows what it feels like to win a tournament, because she's basically been doing it every year for the past 3 years, whereas Sakkari has had a significant gap between those feelings. So yeah, I feel more that the Hong Kong and follow-up 250 tournament means something in terms of Leylah, way more than I feel like the 1,000 win a couple of weeks ago in Guadalajara for Sakkari means something.
Sure.
In my personal opinion.
One thing though I would say about Leylah is that, unlike that US Open run, at least the matches that spring to mind for me for her in the last 12 months, for example, she's lost a few of the tight ones. So instead of winning the tight ones that she was winning in New York in 2021, I mean, I'm thinking about the first round. Who did she play? Samsonova, was it, in New York? She had a really tough first round in New York, and it went 3 sets. I think she won the first set, lost the second. Third set was tight, but despite the fact she was down a double break, she gets a break back. But, you know, she was a break up, I think, maybe in the second set as well. It was just one of those matches where they were breaking left, right, and center.
It was Alexandrova she played.
Alexandrova.
Which is not a person you really want to see in the... Well, you want to see her, but then you also know that she's not great at Grand Slams either. But either way, she puts out a good fight. Yeah.
Yeah, and she can hit the ball as well pretty hard.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But anyway, and that was a tight one, and it could have gone either way. The problem was that day, like often is the case, you just never felt that Leylah was ever going to be in control of the match, because she just couldn't hold serve. And then I also think I remember her playing Caroline Garcia. It might have been straight sets in the end, but it was in Australia, I think. And the tie break was on Leylah's racket, in that there was a shot on top of the net. I think she had a volley anyway, and she didn't put that away. And I think that she sort of carried that into the next 2 points, and the second set ran away from her.
It was 7-6. It was 7-6, 7-5. Second round of Australia this year.
7-5, exactly. So it shows you how close it was, even if it was straight sets. And so I've just seen the matches that stuck out for me for her this year have been super close, but she was on the wrong end of that. Anyway, Nick, any final words on Leylah before we get to your favorite trophy?
I mean, let's say that she you're right on that, but the most recent tight match that she had, she did turn it around multiple times in Hong Kong. Siniakova in the final, but also the Andreeva second round. That could have gone horribly wrong given her record against Andreeva from Madrid earlier in the year.
Yeah.
Can I just say something about Hong Kong? Oh, looking in terms of how it makes sense in Leylah's career.
Why weren't you on last week, Miles?
I don't know. I don't remember why. My memory.
It was Anastasia last week, I think.
That's why, because Anastasia needs shine in the WTA Weekly as well. I can't take up all the shine, Nick. Jeez, can't do it. In terms of Hong Kong, though, they have, in terms of the past decade, they have a very, very, very good women's singles trophy lineup in championship history, and I'm glad Leylah's now in that. The only, I guess, quote unquote sneak, I guess you could say, in the past 10 years is Jastrzębska. But at one point, there was good reason to be hopeful that Jastrzębska was going to be a top 15, top 10, or even higher player. But the remainder of the players have all been in finals of Grand Slams, like Leylah Fernandez, Pavlyuchenkova, Caroline Wozniacki, Jelena Jankovic, and Sabine Lisicki. have all won that Tokyo title in the past 10 years. So Leylah Fernandez, you know, I mean, I know it's a 250 on paper, and then she gets to the semifinal, another one on paper, but I'm also clouding all of what I'm saying with the actual like I have for Leylah and her brand of tennis. But I think it means something. I think it means something for sure.
Sean does have a question I just want to answer very quickly, which is there a player of similar build to Leylah who's above her in the rankings? I was going to say no. John is suggesting Kasatkina, but Kasatkina is a counter puncher, but she's not really the same kind of build. She's a bit taller than Fernandez. In fact, Fernandez is definitely slighter build.
Camilla Giorgi, but I don't think Camilla Giorgi's is actually
not
above
ranked
her.
above Leylah.
But they have similar-ish, like just very slight but dynamic packages. Yeah.
But yeah, no one above her, I don't think.
Yeah.
But yeah, game style wise, Kasatkina's the closest.
I still think Leylah. Actually, I would say that Leylah's game style is more exciting than Kasatkina. I mean,
absolutely.
I said close. I didn't say similar.
Yeah. Okay. If there's a lefty, I think you guys might know what I'm about to say. If there's a lefty that has seemed underpowered and like lacked some kind of weapons and has had ebbs and flows of their career that Leylah could look forward to, her name is Angelique Kerber.
Yes.
Fernandez has beaten. If she should actually watch a couple of Kerber's matches, because Kerber made it through the bulk of her career with a serve that just, you know, kind of got the point started, and Fernandez is in that same category. So, and they're both lightning quick.
Comparison, especially, and like I remember watching that US Open match they played in 2021, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed watching them sort of try to outdo each other at the same game, pretty much.
Agreed.
I know you're not the biggest Kerber fan, but
I mean, hey, I respect her. I respect the fact that she made me. I respect the fact that she made me have to respect her. Like she has enough in her resume for her to go down as a Hall of Fame champion, even though I wasn't the biggest fan of her game style and who she beat to kind of get the recognition that she's gotten. But you know, it's sports. It's okay.
Well, okay. So you mentioned, John, my favorite trophy is coming up. So starting in just under 8 hours in Zhuhai is the WTA Elite Trophy, the backup trophy, if you will, for the end of the years. I have never watched that tournament.
We have to work on that marketing pitch.
Yeah, I think I'm not working on the marketing for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I may have just hamstrung John if he's planning on streaming any of the matches, which, to be fair, on paper, they're all pretty good matches. There's some really good matches. Obviously, there's about 12 different names in the mix.
Is it the first time that this thing has existed?
No, it existed back in 2019. It was part of the roundup. It goes back as far as 2014, maybe?
2015. Venus Williams won the inaugural edition in 15, and then 16 was Kvitova, 17 was Gerges, 18 was Barty, and 19 was Sabalenka. And then due to COVID and other things, it hasn't happened. Really, the Elite Trophy, but they've brought it back. And much as I think I treat it more as an exhibition event, because
really,
I treat it like it. I don't think it should be treated like that, but that's how I kind of see it.
Okay.
Because obviously it's kind of like a consolation prize to me. But what a consolation prize, because actually a lot of those winners that I've mentioned pushed on to having great 2024s, and it was a great way of elevating them into the top 10. So much as I will, like, Barty built up momentum to get to number one. Sabalenka started her rise to the top off the back of winning it in 2019. Venus was a couple of years out from her sort of song at the top of the game, as it were, 16, 17. Even though her career is not done yet. Gerges, that was the year before her semi-final run at Wimbledon. I think that the WTA Elite Trophy is definitely worth keeping an eye on, and definitely worth watching the final four, if anything, to give us a name of, like, this is the person who's now going to be trying to make a big push in 2024.
Has anyone withdrew? Because I'm looking at the players, the 12 players that are confirmed.
Oh yeah, quite a few people withdrew.
Like Madison Keys?
Has Keys withdrawn?
I mean, I'm looking at her name on the list of players, and I just didn't even think that she would even.
She's playing. She's playing on. Well, she's not playing tomorrow. She's not playing in the first round, but she's playing in like the matches afterwards.
Okay.
And here we go. Yeah, she's playing. She's playing in the opening match against Haddad Maya.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to pour water on your excitement, Nick in particular.
Sure.
But the picture's ready. The picture's ready.
I mean, to be honest with you, Nick did also suggest it's a bit like a sort of posh exhibition, but and I get the excitement in that we've got the next, batch of players, and we know how good the top 20 is. I mean, of the women's tour right now. That you just mentioned Madison Keys, who really probably could have and should have been in the US Open final. You mentioned Haddad Maya, who pushed Iga in the semi-finals at Roland Garros, and very few people managed to push Iga at Roland Garros, and the quality of players there is insane. Qinwen Zheng will bring a lot of excitement given her form, but also the fact that she's on home turf.
You've got Krejcikova as well.
Krejcikova as well, who we all know is the greatest player of all time. So the GOAT. But
who's the GOAT?
Krejcikova.
Interesting.
It's just because for about 6 months this year, Miles, I would
yes.
I'd always say don't count her out, but really she'd go out within like the first couple of rounds.
Quietly, she's had her second best season on tour. Quietly.
Yeah.
She's won 1,500, and if she wins this is definitely solidifies the fact that on hard courts, she is a threat. So
she's the one just below the sort of top tier. Yeah. The only thing is just what is sport? What is it all about? You have your tournaments. Imagine having a Grand Slam. Okay, because we're talking about the WTA finals, which is probably the 5th biggest, especially when there's no Olympic year. It's the 5th biggest thing out there. Some people maybe like Indian Wells and so on, but I would probably say it's the next best thing to win.
It's a resume,
right?
It's something you put on your resume for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And so, let's say we got the Australian Open. You go out early in the Australian Open. We'll have an Australian Open 2, shall we? Or we have a New Zealand Open, shall we, for alternatives to people who go out early in Melbourne, for example? I don't know.
I feel that, but I don't know if you guys have mentioned this yet, but I distinctly remember that the idea behind this was to give the players, when the original WTA Elite Trophy was formatted, it was formatted under the tier of when tournaments were premier, mandatory, and all of those stuff. It was the best performers of the players on the international level, which would now be the WTA 250. So I don't think of it in my mind as like a consolation prize for not making it to the WTA finals, the top 8. But I think of it as here's your opportunity for even further career advancement for doing well on the 250 circuit, which a lot of players rotate around, which, given their accomplishments, they should have the right to do so. But there are other players like a Mira Andreeva or Julien or some other names like a Beatrice Haddad Maya who only have WTA 250s on their resume. So winning something like this kind of solidifies the fact that, hey, I might not be a potential top 10, top 5 player, but I have made my mark as a top 50, top 40 player. And I think that means something. So I guess if you maybe I should be on the marketing team for the WTA Elite Trophy.
Well, look, John and I count ourselves out, so yeah, go for it.
I don't mind the concept. It kind of in my mind, I sit it right with the next gen, which is a opportunity for advancement for the younger players who have made strides in their career on the ATP side. This is just worked a little bit differently where there isn't an age requirement. But yeah, I'm excited by it.
I could buy that. Yeah, I'd buy that. Yeah. And there's some, as we said, some really great players in there, and there's, they're going to be fairly evenly matched. If they're coming into it and wanting to do well, this can be super competitive and massively entertaining.
I think competition-wise and entertainment-wise, it could be there. Hey, listen, by the way, I'm more than happy to change my mind in a week from now. And if it comes back with a bang, and in 5 years from now we have this same show and we're talking about how amazing the Elite Trophy is. In fact, we've got players dropping out of Cancun to go to the Elite Trophy because it's more fun. Then fine. I guess I like some order to sport, and I like the 4 Grand Slams. I would probably also like a bit more order to the rest of the calendar, which I think is a bit chaotic.
So that means, based off of this conversation, that means I think I know the answer to this, but I think I can surmise that you're not a great fan of the Labor Cup.
No, not really.
Okay,
What?
got it.
No.
Yep. Because that's the quintessential, like, what are we doing here? Is this sports or is this kind of situation? I get that.
Yeah, I'm fine with exhibitions and so on and so forth. But the thing that annoys me most is just how fake it is. So it's an exhibition. I know there's points and stuff. Oh, sorry, there's head to heads and all sorts of. But when you've got Federer turning up for his farewell, and on the Wednesday he's asked a question about whether he'll be playing with Rafa or not. This is worse up to Bjorn. And we obviously want to win this. And, Monfils as well this year.
Like, do you obviously want to win this, or are you just here to like kind of have some fun? Like, which one is it?
Right, and we know what it is. We know what it is, but it's the fakeness of it that's.
I'm here to make. We're here to make some money. I mean, we're not here to make some money, but the players
we're here to make some money and make sure Rod Laver's name is forever etched in tennis history, I guess. But I do feel like the people that are going to be watching the Elite Trophy and the players take it way more seriously than they would a Labor Cup or any one of the cups.
Well,
really.
Also, let's face it, reasons, as I said, not only is it a great momentum builder, there are points on the table.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you win this, you could technically be in a position to have to defend it or defend those points next year. So yeah, it's a credible event.
To like get yourself either into or knocking on the door of top 10. As you said, Miles,
which helps for the next of the season. Yeah, it helps. Advancing
and pushing the career forward, just for a different group of players to a next gen. So much as it seems weird on paper, it's definitely something to at least keep us occupied while we wait for the WTA finals to kick off.
I think it means something depending on who wins it. So if somebody like the likes of Kudermetova or Caroline Garcia win it, who are in the tournament, that doesn't necessarily change my perception of them and what their 2024 could look like, because we've seen them win relatively large tournaments of equal or similar caliber and not really building that momentum. Whereas if somebody like Zhen Qin wins it, I think she's the only person on this list that I probably would give that credit to. Like, it could actually propel them even further. Maybe Julien, but Julien is of a different stage of her career, I think. Donna Vekic, maybe she's a contender for the maybe, but also she's been around long enough for me to have a idea of what this could mean for her. Whereas if Zhen Qin wins it, or Julien maybe, then I think, oh, okay, like this could be a defining moment in their career, or a catapulting moment in their career. So,
by the way, I don't know if you've noticed, there's also a doubles event happening. There's only 4 teams taking place, and we could be having a grudge match happening in the doubles. There will be a grudge match because it's Miyu Kato and Ayaj Sudijadi taking on Marie Bushkova and Sara Sorribes Tormo in a rematch of that controversial French Open doubles match that saw Kato and her teammate, whose name I butchered.
Sorribes Tormo was in the WTA Elite Trophy in doubles?
Yes, with Bushkova.
Oh, Wikipedia is not giving me the correct information. Who knew?
I've got my information from Wikipedia.
Oh, I'm looking at the players and I see 16, but I don't see Bushkova or Sorribes Tormo.
Maybe Wikipedia UK is different to Wikipedia US.
Maybe.
Either that or.
But this is a prime example of why you can't always trust it. It's a guideliner.
I'm just looking at this picture, but that's probably just the singles players in there. Is it?
That's probably singles players, yeah. But hopefully that takes place, because that's just going to cause our tennis Twitter friends to go into sort of meltdown and get the popcorn out. Yeah, I guess with the singles, I mean, I can't call a winner from it. Like, I can't confidently predict a champion from this. if you were to make me do it, I'd say given the momentum and given how well she's playing in Asia at the minute, Zhang Qinwen maybe would be the most likely person I would go for to win the title. But that's just picking a name out of based on what's going on. Krejcikova lost to Zhang in that final a couple of weeks back in Jiangxi. Keys, I'd be interested to see how she does, given she's not played for a couple of weeks. Samsonova, it's all going to be pretty competitive. But at the minute, I would say if I have to pick a favorite, it's probably just Zhang Qinwen.
I like what Miles said about her as well. I do think it might mean something a bit more, bearing in mind the pedigree of most of the other players. I probably would, and I'm not just saying this because of what I said earlier, but you mentioned Krejcikova. She is somebody that can beat a lot of very, very good tennis players. And, this sort of has a kind of a 500 or 1,000 feel to it in the lineup. And, you'll only have to beat 2 or 3 of them or 4 of them or whatever the format is. I'm guessing you've got 4 groups of 3, right? So it's slightly different.
Yeah,
to the,
and then the winners of the 4 groups play each other in the semis.
Yeah, and you could arguably lose one and win one of you in your group and still go through, depending on what happens and sets and games and all the rest of it and how that permutates out. But we all 3 could beat each other once, and then you'll have a scenario of somehow picking the winner there. So yeah, she would be next on the list. But to be honest with you, any one of the 12 could win, which is
looking at the group,
Krejcikova was a solid favorite to go with, because the rest of the players, the next 4, Keys, Ostapenko, Samsonova, Kudermetova, are of the same cloth, where they could basically catch fire or hit themselves out of the tournament. Everyone else kind of plays a bit more guile, and then maybe Garcia could also hit herself out of the tournament as well. So Krejcikova seems the most stable at the moment, besides Zhang Qinwen.
I wonder about motivation as well. Maybe for someone like Madison Keys, obviously, she's been, going there, and you're just thinking, is she going to go that extra yard? Someone like Qinwen Zheng, I think she would, because of where it is and her form. So that might.
And Haddad Maya would too, if she's healthy. She seems like she competes wherever. So
yeah, true.
Well, we could probably get an idea of it if we look at the groups. So the first group, they seem to be named after flowers. The Azalea group is Krejcikova, Kasatkina, and Lynette.
Big favorite of
Krejcikova and Kasatkina for that one.
Yeah, but Lynette has a very sneaky good record in Asia. I think specifically China. I think she's won 2 tournaments or gotten to like a final or 2 and won a title in Asia or China thereabouts. So that could also be a factor. That's one of the things I love about tennis, is that sometimes the things that don't even come across to us on television while we watch are major factors as to why players feel comfortable on that court or in that setting. So
yeah. So I would imagine Krejcikova would be the favorite for that group. But there's one other thing, going back to what John was saying about motivation, is that Krejcikova is playing Cancun doubles. If she wants to have a real crack at that, she might not necessarily go all out to win this elite trophy.
I feel like she will. I don't. Krejcikova seems to me she strikes me as the kind of person that, one, based off of her season, should have a relatively decent amount left in the tank, because she had a stretch where she wasn't really going deep in any tournaments, and I think she was kind of dealing
flying as well.
Yeah. But she just seems like
Mexico shouldn't be too bad.
China, Mexico?
No, China to Mexico.
We're gonna swim it.
Well, it depends on how you look at it on the globe, I guess. Well, either way, it's a stretch.
They'll go China across the. I mean, I'm not a pilot or anything like that, but
right.
I go across the Pacific. I still reckon.
But that's a lot. That's a lot of space, and I just got scared thinking about it. Wow.
It's a 12-hour flight, I guess.
That's a lot of water to fly over. Jeez. I think Krejcikova is the kind of person to just kind of get on with it, though. Even if that means she goes onto the court not feeling her best, I've seen her kind of be able to rise just enough and ask enough questions of players, especially those players in that group. And then I guess looking forward to how she does in Cancun doubles. She feels like a player, like I said, that just kind of gets on with it regardless of if she actually feels like she can win, and maybe she can work her way through a match and actually come up with a victory. So
I mean, listen, just looking at those groups, I'm going to pick Krejcikova, Let's go with Had Admire. I like
Same.
your thinking there.
Yeah, I go with that as well on
Same.
balance.
Qinwen Zheng, and
Mhm.
I'll go Samsonova.
I would agree. Those are the
Yeah.
strongest contenders in all 4 groups.
And then
Ostapenko's in terrible form. Well, no, maybe I shouldn't say in terrible
it's
form, but
Ostapenko though.
she lost to world's 500 and something in Seoul the other last week or two.
Fair. But
So,
it's Ostapenko. I will. Yeah, she could show up, and Zhang is going to be the kind of player that she will like either let get under her skin, or she'll kind of decide to be determined against.
If we look at the amount of the length of rallies between the Camellia group, which has Keys, Haddad Maia, and Garcia, and the Orchid group, Ostapenko, Qinwen, and Vekic, I think there should be a competition to see who can have the shortest amount of rallies.
Yeah, it's going to be a long one. Yeah, I kind of agree with everyone. And then obviously semi-finals, that's going to be sort of random draw depending on who's won the groups.
Mhm.
So it'll be an interesting sort of see how that Krejcikova, Haddad Maia, Zhang, Samsonova, how they all match up against each other. We're in for a good one, I think. I think we're in for a good week.
It's
ahead.
the second to last WTA tournament of the season, right?
Yes, then the last one is WTA Finals, and that's of course you can't Billie Jean
Wild.
King Cup, which, as we said earlier, we will be covering on the ground in Seville. I know Billie Jean King Cup is not technically WTA organised, but it's women's tennis, all right. This show's got to try and get as much.
Oh yeah,
out of
true. Yeah, we're going to have a bit of a conundrum there. We're still going to cover it. We're not going to call it ITF Weekly for a week.
No, because that's going to give a different interpretation of what this show's about.
I have an interpretation about Billie Jean King Cup that mirrors a little bit of what John was saying about the Elite Trophy, but out of respect and excitement for Talking Tennis actually covering the event, I will not say them.
Now is not the time.
It's not the time.
I am biased because I've got a pass, but also because I love Seville as well. But
of course, yeah, those are well strong enough reasons to negate my reasons.
Yeah, but it's a competition, and it's not Laver Cup.
Yes, I agree.
All right. Well, thanks both for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you about all the action from this week and spending a lot of time hyping ourselves up from what was a very low level of hype to a decent level of hype for the WTA Elite Trophy. We will be back on Sunday evening again, back to your regularly scheduled slot, hopefully in plenty of time to give a preview of the WTA finals by a couple of hours. Looking forward
just
to
quickly,
who won the WTA Elite Trophy.
Nick and I were sort of talking about this earlier. We think the WTA finals kicks off around about 5 p.m. local time on Sunday. Does that sound about right to you,
Yes.
Mark?
Yeah, it does. I think Cancun is on Central something North American time.
But
yeah,
that's sort of late afternoon, early evening, because that then gives us time to roll out a show a few hours before. I think a couple of hours.
I want to do some. I'd be interested in doing some watch-alongs for some of those events, because actually, my Talking Tennis anniversary is during the WTA finals of Fort Worth last year.
So that was your first time, was it? On
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
You covered the final, didn't you?
With Garcia and Sabalenka, yeah, that sounds about right. I think I did it solo, which was crazy thinking back to that. Now
wasn't Nick there? I thought Nick was there for
maybe Nick. Nick was there, but was the finals alone? I'm not sure.
No, I know what we did. You and I, you were with someone who hasn't commentated since.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, actually, I spoke to him on Twitter recently. Yeah, guy in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yes.
His connection was not great unfortunately that night. But
you and I did, and Ashley did the Swiatek Sabalenka semi-final, and I think I remember watching that one in kind of disbelief that Swiatek lost it. I'm not gonna give anything too much, but yeah, I think that's when we did it. She's coming back for 2023.
I have a question that we can pose to each other, maybe when the WTA finals starts, but I guess this is a good time. I don't know. Do you guys feel a similar level of excitement compared to last year in the run up to Fort Worth, or better excitement for Cancun?
More given the field that's there.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for this field. I'm really excited for the potentials, and I'm gutted that I'm going to have to sleep through half of it.
I'll try to do my
I'm more
best.
excited, Miles. I'm more excited. I just think that there's a crescendo that's being built to the season that is going to see world number 1 decided. I'm pretty sure that was already locked up by this time last year. There are. This is not anything against Iga, but because of the competition, there's a bit more doubt. I mean, Iga didn't win the tournament last year, but it was
But it felt like it was a pop in
Iga's year
circumstance. She
done,
was going to,
we've got 4 players all arguably with a shout of saying I'm the player of the year, whether Iga or Arena finishes world number 1 or not. If Coco adds this to her resume, I mean, what an incredible year she will have had. Right now, I've got Arena just at the front, just slightly because of her consistency at the slams and the fact that she is world number 1. And then Elena Rybakina could. I mean, I think she's the one of the 4 that I'm thinking of that if she was to win it, you would still find it difficult to say she's had the best year because she hasn't won a Grand Slam. But
it would technically be the best season of her career, kind of.
But Wimbledon.
Yeah, Wimbledon does trump some things, but as far as winning percentage and amount of wins and consistency of lifting titles.
Of the 4, that I mentioned, I know Vondrousova won a Grand Slam this year as well, but of those 4 players, if it was Rybakina to win it would just really bunch them up, and
make Australia even better. Yeah,
I'm going to say this now. I know I should probably save it for next week, but I'm going to say this now. Rybakina is currently my pick for the title because of her matchups with the other main contenders. I'm more confident in her beating Sabalenka and Swiatek and Goff.
Have we got any solidity on if Jabeur, Vondrousova, or Mukova are actually going to play their spots? I mean,
as far as we're aware, they're going to.
If I was given the opportunity, especially for Vondrousova and Mukova, this is their first time qualifying, unless I had a type of injury that felt like if I play on this, I am going to risk my career, I'd probably put some tape on it and go out there and play.
I think we're going to do that, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, so we'll see. If they don't or if they do, then that gives me some something to go off on how.
I didn't know there was a problem with her.
I have not seen her play in a couple of weeks, and I don't think
Vondrousova,
yeah, and in Mukova, I don't think I've seen her play much since
the US Open.
Yeah, so that makes me. I mean, that could be a pure scheduling choice to kind of just make sure you don't burn yourself out, or there could be some kind of.
Well, she was having treatment in that semi-final. If you remember when there was that hour-long delay, and Brad Gilbert was saying all sorts of things, which is quite amusing. She was actually.
Vondrousova's not played since Beijing. She's played 1 match since the US Open, and that was the first round exit to Carolina in Beijing.
And then who's the 8th player? Who's the 8th?
Mukova is 8, Vondrousova 7, and Jabeur is withdrawn from her last 2 tournaments, either mid-tournament or
that we haven't mentioned. I'm just trying to know who that is.
Pegula.
Oh yes, Pegula.
Who I would say is a dark horse for this one.
Imagine if she wins it. That'll be 3 tournaments in a year, and she won't be the player of the year, but it'll rev up the can Pegula do at a major conversation.
It would be like, yeah, guys, I can beat the top players.
I do love that about the WTA finals, though, because the past couple, like, unless you get somebody like a Barty winning it, like she did in 2019, she was already the standalone player, basically, or starting to kind of get her reign at the top. You've gotten some Amelie Mauresmos who had not won a slam. You've gotten Caroline Garcia, Caroline Wozniacki, who had not won a slam yet. So Delina didn't quite use the momentum. But there have been some legit stories of players that have kind of reshaped some things at that year-ending finals, and I do love that small niche of players who've done that and how that kind of creates a storyline going forward. Because it happened just last year with Caroline Garcia. Like, it was like, okay, she's won the biggest season of her career. What can she do in 2024? And I kind of always had an eye on when it was going to click. Unfortunately, never clicked, but it gives you intrigue into the next season, I think.
All right. Well, we started our WTA finals preview a week early.
Sorry.
Yeah, but the thing is, I know that I'm almost certainly not going to be on for that, and I'm not sure if Miles will be either. I'm trying to hit up a couple of A-listers. We'll see if that happens for.
I'll definitely be
not A-list.
Pardon?
You saying Miles is not A-list? How dare you, John?
Sorry, Miles is A plus.
I'm just D-list. The D stands for David. It's fine. But I don't mind hopping on and doing some live watch-alongs for the WTA finals. So.
It'd be amazing. It'd be amazing. I mean, listen, I'm more than happy to sort of just be backstage, except when Monastir is here. I'll be back on in a year. That's me. It's me for my annual appearance, or maybe a Saturday afternoon when no one else can make it. I think pre-Wimbledon, I think it happened, or was it pre-French? But yeah, I'm quite happy being back.
Are you gonna bring the hookah on set now that you've experienced it at Monastir?
You saw the video, and did you see the video I played right at the beginning of this show? By the way, Mark?
Yeah, I did. That's because I saw that clip twice.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. You chuckled. Yeah, right. Will I be bringing that on? I don't think I'll ever bring it on the show. I mean, I haven't even brought it back with me. So
there's a very because I'm a YouTube, I guess, connoisseur, there's a unique audience of people that you may be able to gel by using hookah during a live stream, because people actually watch people experiment with hookahs on live stream, and maybe they could watch you do that and watch tennis at the same time. Hookah and tennis.
For those of you just tuning in and wondering what Miles is talking about, there is an alternative word for that, which is shisha.
It's not occurred to me.
Right. Miles is right. There's two words for it. I think in Hebrew,
in America it's called, or I guess the US or in North America it's called hookah. Like there's lounges, there's clubs.
Well.
That's right, definitely, yeah. But so you've got. We're not going to go down the cultural route, but there's one group.
Hemorrhaging viewers, John.
One group will call it a hookah, and one group will call it a shisha.
Shisha. But I think shisha, the way I would describe shisha, is the actual thing that you're smoking, and the hookah is the actual instrument.
Makes sense.
Instrument, yeah.
Have I come on the wrong show?
We'll be back on.
I'm telling you, there's a niche. I guess I'm part of the niche that enjoys hookah and tennis.
We'll be back again next week for a debate on whether we're going to call it a hookah or a shisha going forward. But until then, Nick.
Well, until then, we will be talking about tennis at some point. Keep an eye on the channel for all the coverage. John, what plans for tournaments are we covering this week? Is it mainly ATP?
Yeah, tomorrow we've got a watch along for Tsitsipas team with the brain in a jar, the tennis brain in a jar that is Damien, alongside Vanch. So they'll be bringing us that, which will be about early evening in Europe and lunchtime across the US. So that's that. I'm sure we'll have plenty more watch alongs from Vienna and Basel this week. And of course, we've got the Elite Trophy as well, and then WTA finals. I'm not sure. I know I'm pretty confident, because she said she would do it. We've got Blair Henley will be on for the review of the WTA finals, which will be on the 6th
I'm a big fan of hers.
Yeah, and I think I'll be in Seville by then, so I'll probably be in the press room in Seville pulling the strings for that particular show. So that's to look forward to.
Lots to look forward to in the channel. So for those of you watching, whether you're watching us live or whether you're watching us back, because I appreciate probably a few of you will be watching us back, given how late we are European time. Subscribe to us, give us a like if you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you again for WTA Weekly on Sunday evening for our proper preview of the WTA finals, of which you got probably a good taster for in this episode. Until then, keep talking tennis.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis. Shisha.